Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another day of Vlogoween. So today is a super exciting video. Today I have with me author Kathy-Lynn Cross, and she's going to talk about her book and little quick introduction to what I'm drawing in this video. This is one of the main characters from her book, So Shall I Reap. So without any further ado, I'm just going to start this interview right now. So Kathy, please introduce yourself.
I'm Kathy-Lynn Cross. I'm the author of the Unseen series, and the first book starts off with So Shall I Reap. It just relaunched the end of September of 2017. I'm self-publishing it on smashwords.com, and that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. And I will definitely have all of Kathy's links to all of her books and all of her social medias in the description, so please make sure to check all that out. And yeah, so let's get right into the questions. So can you tell us a little bit more about the Unseen series and So Shall I Reap?
Well, the first book starts off with a reaper getting hoodwinked into saving a life instead of taking a life. And Teven, who is my grumpy Grim Reaper, has to watch over Alexia, who's my broken teenager. And basically they have no positive emotions and they can't connect that way. And they're made that way on purpose, so that way when they're facing death and they have to harvest somebody, they're not connected in any way, shape, or form. So he starts to get very curious about Alexia, watching over her. 10 years later, watching her, he starts building this one-sided bond, and he's not quite sure what it means. And that's what basically starts off the Unseen series. He's getting curious about humanity and Alexia herself, and what he starts to find is if he can really balance watching over her and still take a life.
Awesome. And I just want to say that I have indeed read the book, and it is fantastic. Teven is one of the most interesting characters I've read about because, like she said, he is he ends up being a very unwilling guardian angel of sorts, and it is a very fun book to read and very well written, and the world that they live in is just so imaginative and wonderful, and I can't talk this book up enough, to be honest. So I just wanted to insert that.
She's totally making me blush right now.
Perfect. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I was never really interested in writing in the beginning, but my niece was visiting back in 2008, and she ended up getting sick and hospitalized while they were staying here and completely bored. We were right in the middle of reading the Twilight Saga when it was popular and all the rage, and I decided, since we had read all the books and there was nothing else to read, I wanted to write her a little story. And after I took it in for her to read the following day, it was really bizarre. Nurses were coming up to me and asking me, so what's next? And I'm looking at them like, what are you talking about? And they explained that my niece was handing out the story to the nurses that were taking care of her. And I'm like, I have no idea. And they're like, well, you have more of the story, right? And then I walk into her room and she's like, so what's next? And that's pretty much what started to spark me that maybe I could possibly do this.
I love that story. So now some questions from people that submitted. How do you get inspiration / motivation to continue with an idea that you've started?
A real big key is music. I make playlists for not just the book itself, but all of my characters. And then that way I feel that connection, that link, I can actually get into the character itself, to the point to where a lot of my family thinks I'm crazy because of this, but I can literally hear the voice of that character in my head, like they're telling me the story and what to say and what to type, which what makes it very difficult when I have an editor telling me, no, they can't say that, and I've got the character in my head going, oh yeah, I can. And just pictures, everyday life, I'll have something happen to me and I'll find that it's super funny or actually extremely sad. And I can actually put that into my writing and think about how that character would have handled that situation. And that actually helps as well.
Awesome. And I will say from experience, yes, she does hear voices in her head, but I think that's what makes her a great writer. So, next question. What's the best advice you can give for future writers?
Never stop writing. Even if you get a little quip, something that inspires you that you're like, you know, this actually will really sound good, and you type it out, and 5 minutes later you look at it and you're like, this stinks. It's actually a stepping stone. Believe it or not, that's a building block for you. Never stop writing. Never try to stop expanding your vocabulary. I'm finding that a lot of, I write mainly young adult, YA. A lot of them don't want you to dumb down the book. They want to expand, and I actually find that that makes me better to paint the picture for the reader to actually get into the story, to feel what the character's feeling, be in that situation. I don't want to just place you in the Grand Canyon. I want you to feel the wind in the Grand Canyon, see the colors in your mind of the Grand Canyon. And I believe that's what's going to help you to be a better writer.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. So, how does one practice the writing technique?
Have a notebook everywhere. I have one in the car. I have one in my purse. I have one right next to my computer. I have one almost in every single room. You get the inspiration, you write it down. I actually have a really funny story. I was driving my daughter on the way to school, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I just like started freaking out and screaming because I could hear my main character in my Reaper series, Teven. He was talking, and then all of a sudden I heard Alexia chime in, and they were having this conversation, and I'm driving, and I had no paper. I couldn't pull over. I had to get her to school. My daughter actually pulled out her cell phone and started typing as I was telling her what they were saying. So she actually typed out the whole entire clip as I was driving to school, so I could write it down later on. Thank goodness that she was there, and she understands the crazy. She understands her mom's crazy, and she saved me, and I actually saved that clip. That clip is actually going in the 3rd book.
I also love hearing that story because it is so you, and I
totally
just
freaked out. It was horrible. I was like, I'm gonna get in a wreck.
I can just picture that happening in my brain, and that is just absolutely hilarious. So, next question is, how do you get the ideas for your books?
Well, So Shall I Reap actually started off with a story that I really don't talk too much about it, but we lost my mother-in-law, and it really took the rug out from underneath us. And then 6 months later, my mom had been sick for quite a long time, but she just she was done. She was tired. 6 months later, we lost my mom. And that's where I get my pseudonym from, because I write under a pen name. And Kathy is for Catherine, which is my mother-in-law. And Lynn is for my mother, and her name was Linda. And Cross was a joke because we were telling everybody it was going to take me a prayer to get me there and published. And that's pretty much how I came up with Kathy-Lynn Cross. Their passing actually was really devastating, and I took the time to start writing, and I started thinking, if you could face death and talk to death or convince death to not go through with it, what would you do? And then I started building off of that. You know, what would a Reaper face if somebody was like contracted them into saving a life and protecting that life instead of taking what their nature and taking the life? And that's pretty much what started inspiring the Unseen series. And this is where we are today.
Thank you very much for that. So, if you could be any paranormal creature, which one would you choose and why?
I would like to be a ghost, but not just any type of ghost. I know that they say poltergeists are an essence or negative feelings drawn off of a person, but I would actually want to be a poltergeist because I would really want to be able to move stuff and, you know, pull your hair and tell you, you know, hey, we're going to go this way. I really want to mess with somebody, but yeah, I'd want to be a poltergeist.
You would be like a total bully ghost.
I would be a bully ghost. And I couldn't be sued for being a bully either because I'd be, you know,
who's going to sue a ghost?
Who's going to admit, you know, I want to sue this person for, you know, yeah.
All right. So when did you first realize that you wanted to be a writer?
It really wasn't in 2008. I was actually contemplating if I could do something like this. And then it wasn't until my mother's passing about 2 months after that is when I actually started outlining So Shall I Reap. And just, it was started with one chapter. And then I started kind of messing with mythology and religion and combining it together to try to create my unseen world. And it was then that I started realizing by the time I got to like the 5th chapter and how the story was flowing, I was like, you know, this is actually going somewhere. So it was about 2011, yeah, is when my mother passed. And that's when I started writing.
Thank you so much for that. So now, what is your all-time favorite book?
My all-time favorite book, it hasn't changed. And I am not ashamed whatsoever, but I like Alice in Wonderland to death. I mean, I've watched all the movies. I've read Through the Looking Glass so many times. I even have child books of Alice in Wonderland. And in So Shall I Reap, there are Easter eggs in So Shall I Reap of the references of C.L. Lewis's Alice in Wonderland. And I can't get enough of it. I love the Cheshire Cat, and I keep thinking of what it would be like if you could grow big, grow small, you know, have mushrooms on the side, and not for, you know, technically getting high or anything like that, but I'm not looking for that era. But just to have that power to, you know, move within your imagination and just create your own world that way and make nonsense sense. It blows my mind.
Little aside, for Christmas one year, I gave Kathy a bright pink collector's edition of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and I can see it right now in her bookshelf. So, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And it's still in the cellophane wrapper because it's so pretty. I just keep it with my collections, and I just keep reading my old one over and over.
All right, so this is our last question that I have. So if you could tell your past self anything, what would it be?
Oh, I know this sounds so cliche, but I would say save your money. You need to have that, you know, in anything, save your money. Don't just spend it on a whim. And in this particular case, as an author, self-published author, I am like so much in debt. It takes a lot to actually produce your own work. You're sitting for several hours typing this out, planning this out. I actually am a pantster writer. I write at the seat of my pants, but I do a little planning beforehand. But even sitting down and writing it out by the seat of my pants, it takes me, you know, at least a couple of months to actually get it out. And then you're paying somebody to make your cover if you're not doing it yourself. You're paying to have it edited because you just don't want to slap up anything, you know, and not have it clean for your reader. You're paying to have it formatted if you're not doing your own formatting. And so it actually takes a lot to get one book out. And it's not just like, poof, there it is. And that's my best advice I could say is save your money for anything, any kind of passion that you have. You need at least a few months saved up so that way you can focus on what you love and not break the bank, basically.
That is such good advice, and I wholeheartedly agree. So,
not to sound like a parent and, you know, burst everybody's bubble, but yeah.
Saving's important. So with that, that's all the questions that I had. Is there anything else you would like to say? Anything else you'd like to plug?
If you're going to, or you want to aspire as a writer, author, just know it is not a business for everybody. You need to have that commitment. You need to have that constant flow. Don't think that you have to have it out like right away. Take your time, develop your talent, have other people read it. You need that feedback. You need to have that critique in there, because if you don't have that and you just throw it out there and then people start tearing it apart, you're going to feel that much, you're going to remember the negative and not the positive. So you really need that feedback. Get that critique, sit in a critique group, ask people to share their opinion. Don't be afraid to hear the negative as well as the positive, but try not to dwell on the negative. I know that's really hard, but try not to dwell on the negative.
All right, so thank you so much, Kathy, for doing this video with me. It was really great to hear from you. Really good to hear some other advice from someone who isn't an artist but still in a creative field, and definitely take her advice to heart, because it's all very true, and her writing definitely speaks for itself.
Well, thank you. And I love what you did. I love his grumpy face and everything. Oh my gosh, I am so blown away from this. If you get a chance, look back about what 2 years ago is when we did this.
2 or 3 years ago. Yes,
the first fan art that she did of Teven. This just doesn't even compare to it. I am so blown away with this. I mean, I love the first one, but I'm biased anyway. But this one, his facial expression is just so him. I mean, he just has that, oh my gosh, she's getting in trouble again. You know, I just see that in his face. He's like, really? Do I need to go save her again? This is so awesome, and I cannot wait for the final rendition after she colors it in. But what she did for Inktober, this is just, I'm okay. I've been talking about it, but I'm speechless, really.
Now you're going to make me blush. Stop it. So anyway, I think we're going to end the video here, guys. So once again, So Shall I Reap, book 1 of the Unseen series, is available on Smashwords. I will have all of the links in the description. Please, 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 please go give it a check, because like I said, I love this book. I love the characters. Teven is my favorite, but Alexia is also a really interesting character. And it's just, the world building in this book, guys, is just insane. So anyway, enough tooting our own horns. We're gonna head out, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have an excellent day, and I will see you again tomorrow for another day of Vlogoween. But until then, stay spooky.
See you later.